Hi, I'm Andrew Sheps, and welcome to a late addition to the Quick Start series. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can bounce mixes in real time if you're using external summing mixers that in your setup have been feeding an audio track directly, and you've been using the transport to hit record to bounce your mixes. So the first thing to understand is that Bounce Factory uses the bounce dialog. It does not hit record in the transport, which will cause a problem if your sessions are set up feeding an external analog input directly to your print track. And what I'm going to do is open up the bounce dialog for you here. And you'll see that at the moment, the mix source is Pro Tools Stereo, which is a physical output. And you could also choose 1 and 2, which is an output. If you look at the audio track here, the output is set to 1 and 2. So you would think that that would work. But when you use the bounce dialog to print a mix, no audio track can be in input. So what would happen is, if you don't have any audio on the track already, you would be bouncing silence. If you do, you would be bouncing the audio that is already on that track. It would not be bouncing the new mix. So what you have to do is, if we look at this input to the audio track, that will not be selectable as a source for bouncing. It is only the outputs of things. So internal buses in Pro Tools, outputs that are in your I/O setup, or physical outputs, which would just be your I/O. The way to get around this is you create an aux. So we'll create a stereo aux, and we'll call this mix router. And what we'll do is we will set the input of this aux to be the same input as the print track right now, which is I main 1 and 2. Then we will set this to be a new bus that we'll use 39 and 40 that's available in my session. And let's rename this. This can be, we'll call it mix router because it is actually what's coming out of the mix router. And then what we'll do is we'll change this track's input to be the mix router. So I'll just use the search and we'll use mix router. So the audio path right now is out of your external analog gear that's going into a physical input, then out of this aux into a stereo bus that's within the Pro Tools mixer. Then that stereo bus feeds the print track, and then the print track goes to your speakers so you can hear it. And I just want to point out that with aux tracks in Pro Tools, if the volume is at 0 and they are hard panned, assuming they're wider than mono, there is absolutely no change to the audio. If you had a bit scope, you could pop it on the input and the output of this aux, and it would be absolutely identical. So there is no change at all. But what this means is now we have our mix that's feeding an internal bus in Pro Tools. And if we go in here, now we can select the bus that is mix router. All right. So now I'm going to show you how you set that up in Bounce Factory. Click Take Snapshot. It will gather some information. It wants me to make a selection. I say OK. And now it's going to find out lots of stuff about the session. And one of the things it will find out is all of the valid mix sources that would be available if you were using the bounce dialog directly. And here's where it got it. It says sorting bounce source menu items. Now we're gathering the export stuff, setting the session back the way it was. And we will come to the Bounce Factory window. So all you need to do is uncheck offline. Here you want to have the router as your input, and that's it. You make all of the same mix passes. Everything else, it will solo and mute tracks. All of that kind of stuff will work, and you will be bouncing your mixes while you sleep.